There comes a time in a man's life when he has to elevate himself from boyhood to manhood. There comes a time when you have to do a proper introspection and ask yourself hard questions that you've been avoiding. Most of us find it hard to ask ourselves personal hard questions because they are painful. But remember, where there is pain, there is growth. If you look at the state of manhood right now, not only in South Africa, but in the world, manhood is under attack. And if where the man goes, the woman goes. And where the woman goes, the children goes. And where the children goes, the family goes. And where the family goes, the community goes. And where the community goes, the country goes. And where the country goes, the world goes. If you follow that, then you will understand that the foundation for our happiness, the foundation for our security, the foundation for our provision, the foundation for our families to be the way God created them starts first and foremost, man being who he is supposed to be. Most of us don't. I will take you through the 4 stages of manhood. And by looking at this, it will make it much easier for you. Number 1, you have to identify exactly where you are. Number 2, you have to accept where you are. Number 3, you have to take the responsibility of doing the work that will take you from where you are to where you need to go. I will use the 4 stage of manhood pyramid, and I will divide a man's life into 4 stages. We all go through 4 stages. The first stage here is survival stage. We all born at this stage. At this stage, you are more dependent. You are more dependent. You are dependent on everyone. You are dependent on the grown-ups in your life. You are dependent on your mother. You are dependent on your father. You are dependent on your community. You are dependent on your family to feed you, to protect you, to educate you, to sustain you. When you are at this stage as a male, when you are at this stage as a child, you never have to worry about anything because everything is taken care of. And that's what we do as parents. That's what we do as grown-ups. And that is what we do as men. Our job here is to provide and protect. And that is what most boys do. But if you look at the current state of the world now, majority of us cannot do that, not only for our families. We cannot do that for ourselves. We cannot provide for ourselves. We cannot protect ourselves. We cannot provide for our families. And we cannot provide for our community. Now, this stage here is understandable. And this is the beginning of us as human beings. You cannot, unfortunately, you cannot bypass this stage. But remember, it's only a stage. It's only a phase that has to last a certain period of time. From this stage, we go into the next stage. And this is what we call the success stage. This stage is marked with independence. You trying to be successful, and to be successful simply means you starting to equip yourself. And this is where we start going to school, where you start getting education. This is where you get employment. This is where you start to upskill yourself. And you'll find when you get to this, you fill yourself, you're nourishing your mind with knowledge. You're nourishing your body with food. You're nourishing your body with exercise. Success. Now, success is where you get a job and all of a sudden you start taking care of yourself. It's not a matter of taking care of others. It's a matter of being able to sustain, being able to finance your life. Now, you'll find a lot of people after school, the mid-20s, early 20s, mid-20s, they are able to do this. They finish college, they finish university, and the first thing they'll be looking for, of course, is employment. And that is also a phase of your life that you have to understand where you are, when you transit into that phase, and how long it will take. The third phase here is what we call the significance phase. Significant phase is where all of a sudden now you start doing more than just you. You want to be in a position where now you can take care of your family here. This one is taking care. This one is purely, success is purely taking care of self. You can sustain yourself. Significance is taking care of family. And this is where we start getting married. This is where we start educating or sponsoring our siblings or some members of the community into school. Now, these two phases here are what we call independence phase. This is a phase where you are fighting for independence. This is a phase where you're moving from home. This is a phase where you own your own car. This is a phase where nobody tells you what to do with your time, but it's also a phase. Now, the society that we live in will always equip you with enough, they'll give you enough material to get you to these two things. And you can go as high as you can to the pinnacle of your success, the pinnacle of your life. You can become as successful using the strategy or using the blueprint that society gives you. Because society focuses more on external growth. You know, your definition of success here is defined by your level of education. It's defined by your titles. It's defined by the labels we wear. It's defined by where you live. So that your external acquisition of material things defines your independence. And we get into that. We buy into that. Then we get to this one here, where it is what I call the legacy phase. Majority of men that I know, and this is where also your midlife crisis comes in. Majority of men that I know get stuck at this phase. They don't know how to unbundle or leave this phase or transit or get out of this phase and get into the final phase and become who God intended them to be. Remember, this is becoming who the world defines you to be. This is living and fulfilling the world's definition of success. Now, we want you to fulfill your divine calling. The only person that can define a purpose for something is the one that created it. Now, our purpose has been hijacked by society. Our purpose has been hijacked by the world. Our purpose has been hijacked by the world with the sole intention of diverting our resources and diverting our focus so that they can use us as a tool. Remember, we become tools in the world's production system. Now, there are two things that most of us men struggle with. We have what we call change and transition. Now, if you look from here, from significance to survival, we go through changes. These are normally external things. There's a lot of external changes that I noticed in my body from my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, my 60s. There are changes that I can see. There are physical changes I can see. I can see I'm losing hair, I become bald. I can see I don't recover as fast as I used to recover when I was younger. I can feel things like, doctor tell me your blood pressure is high, but I don't understand why. All those are physical circumstances, things that most of us can deal with. And because they happen over a period of time, nature has a way of making sure that we don't get surprised. Can you imagine how you will feel if you woke up one morning, you went to bed with a head full of dark hair, black hair, very smooth face, and then when you wake up in the morning looking at yourself in the mirror, you see a very wrinkled face and a head full of white hair? That will be shocking. It will shock you to death. But in most cases, it's a very subtle change and we get used to it. In fact, for me now, I feel better than when I used to be in my 20s. It could be, maybe it's true, or maybe it could be because I can't even remember how I felt in my 20s because the change has been subtle. But now, what most men are struggling with here is transition. If you look at majority of us are undergoing depression, deep depression. A majority of us are undergoing and suffering from meaninglessness in our lives. Most of us are struggling to find out what is our purpose. Most of us are asking ourselves, what is the meaning of life? There has to be more in my life than just waking up, taking care of my family, paying bills, and then one day I'll die. Those are questions that come into place when we get stuck in one phase for too long. And nature has a way of nudging us. Nature has a way of whispering. And if we don't listen, if we don't budge, give in to the nudging, if we don't listen to the whisper, then it turns into a shout. And that's where depression comes in. That is where the restlessness comes in. That's where you start asking yourself, how comes that I've got all the external trappings of the success, that you are connected on everything and everyone online, while you have this restlessness inside? You are wired, but deep inside you're melting down. Those divine questions, that is a way that God nudges you. That is a way of the universe telling you, come on, don't settle. You're bigger than what's around you. He that is in you is much powerful and much, much stronger than who is around you. Which simply means, if my translation of that simply means that the God in you, the Spirit in you, is much bigger, more powerful. It wants to do more God-fulfilling things. It wants to fulfill its purpose rather than being limited into your physical limitation, your mind thinking based on what the world has told you. Now, legacy here is where you change. Now, if you look at this, significance is where all of a sudden you never have to worry about sustenance. You can take care of yourself. You can take care of your loved ones. And I'll give you a very easy example here. You find John is an investment banker. John, by 12 o'clock, just by tapping a few taps on his computer, he's easy made 100K, easy made 200K. At 12 o'clock, he sits by his phone, he's having lunch. He has more money than he'll ever need. He drives a Ferrari or a Porsche or whichever car that you prefer. He lives in one of the best penthouses in Santon City. But the problem here is, as much money as John is making, if he does not wake up in the next day in the morning, nobody's going to miss him. He has no impact. And this is now where our happiness comes in. This one here is linked to interdependency. Interdependency is where all of a sudden we realize that life is a relay. And it's a relay in the sense your happiness is entirely in total proportion to this kind of living. You have to be lifting somebody up while you looking up to somebody else. And in most cases here, this becomes your spiritual development. This becomes to become as close as to the Jesus in you, to become as close as to the God in you, to be as pure as the Spirit in you. So we have to live this way, where I'm pulling somebody else by imparting all my information and all my knowledge, everything I've learned in my last couple of centuries that I've lived, and then looking up to somebody else. And this is the biggest problem. Most of us are stuck at independence. And at independence, happiness is not how much you can do for yourself. Happiness is in total proportion to the number of smiles, to the number of faces that you can change in your life. And this is where making money, purposeful money creation strategies. Why are you working so hard and you'll never ever finish that money? Why are you working so hard and you'll never take that money with you when you die? Those are questions that make people depressed. Why will you get out of bed every morning and you have every single toy, everything that money can really buy? And you can see how empty that kind of life comes in. And this is where we meet to make this transition. Change is easy. Transition is internal. Transition is your spiritual fight. Transition is your spiritual growth. Transition is becoming as close as you can into that spirit you. You are a spirit that has a body that came with a soul. And most of us end up, we are born as a body, we live as a body, and we die as a body. And that is a painful, painful existence. Women find it much easier. Women are more intuitive. Women are more in tune with their spiritual being than men are. Men, we more focus on intelligence versus intuition. And spirituality has got nothing to do with intelligence. It's got more to do with intuition. It's got more to do, for lack of better word, gut feeling. And most of us will always override our gut feeling. What do you need to do to get into this here? And this is where, when it reaches to this, and you realize that you're successful based on the definition of society, you realize you've reached the top of the success ladder, but your ladder is leading and leaning against the wrong wall. And most of us realize, as successful as I think I am, as successful as my friends say I am, as successful as I look like I am, I'm successful because I have wrong goals. And if your goals are wrong, whatever activities that you indulge in, whatever activities that you invest your time in are going to be wrong for you. So when it comes to this, we have to have a way of transitioning from all these phases and come here. And this is where our legacy project comes in. We focus more on men making sure that rather than growing, you've been growing from survival, success to significance. You've been investing and growing the container. Now, legacy or interdependence is filling the container. You have this house. You build the best house in the world, but you don't live in it. Now we need you to live in it. We need your presence. We need your character. We need your signature in that home. And that is what you're being called to be. Your happiness is not going to be found by you chasing after more things, going after more accolades, getting more qualifications, chasing after more deals. It will only come when you become and get closer to yourself. You can only know more, you can only know other people better through knowing yourself better. And most of us avoid that question of knowing ourselves. So remember, which of these phases are you stuck at? There is no wrong phase, and it's never too late for you to transit, for you to move from one phase to the next. It's about having the right question. It's about having the right value system. It's about having access to the right people. Just having access to the people close to you have a very, very big, they have a very big effect on how fast you go through this. Make sure that your circle of five, your band of brothers, are people that are on the same mission with you. Do not hang out with people that are stuck. You need to consistently be growing. Remember, life is all about progress. Life demands growth. And if you're stagnant, it will always try to get you out of there through pain. Anytime that you're going through pain, anytime that you're going through meaninglessness, anytime that you're going through despondency in life, it's always a sign of ignorance. It means there is something you need to be doing that you don't know how. And it's the lack of knowledge. And knowledge is either in books or knowledge is in those people around us. Most of us don't have older men around us. And without older men, it creates a very big problem. I will finish this by telling you one of the stories here about elephants when it comes to South Africa. They started taking young bulls and they started taking them to Okavango Delta. Now, all of a sudden, these bulls, what happened here, they started killing rhinos. And the zoologists and the anthropologists could not understand what was happening until one anthropologist came and decided that one of the best things that we're going to do here is let's take one old bull and one old female and let's take them among the young. And it's only when they moved this older bull or this older bull and older elephant, immediately, just like magic, all of a sudden, the death of the rhinos stopped. How did that happen? That was surprising to everybody. They realized that when it comes to elephants, elephants have a very strong social family structure. And all the young elephants will always bow and submit themselves to the older elephants. So when they took these young elephants, took them away from the environment and away from the elders, all of a sudden, they didn't know what to do when they got into puberty. Straight away, they wanted to have sex with the female calf elephants, but the young ones were not interested. So that turned into aggression. and they started killing the rhinos. But when they brought the older elephant, order was restored. And this is the same thing that is happening with most of us men. Majority of men have no access to any man that is older than them. And by not having access to older men, there is a lot of social, economic, psychological, emotional factors in the negative sense that most of us have never even thought of. Without having an older man in your life, without having access to an older man, it means they've put us on this very fast highway of manhood, where it's littered with all these traffic lights, taxi drivers, these robbers and hoodlums, but we have no direction. Most of us do not know how to become men. You can't become a man that you've never seen. And most of us, we've never seen. So from a social point of view, let's nurture our older men. It's our job to go out there and look for an older man. For an easy example, here at the gym at Dream Body Fitness, I'm the oldest black man that most of these young men will see. But what happens to me? I have no access to black older men. And when I ask most men, who is the oldest black man you've seen of late? Most of them can't remember ever seeing a 60 or 70-year-old man. Why? Because they say maybe most of them are in the villages. But the truth of the matter is most of our older black men are dead. They're either dead from being broke, they're dead from distractions, they're dead from frustrations, they're dead from physical ailments, high blood pressure, diabetes, they drink themselves to death. Remember, a society cannot grow without older people, because the minute you take away an older person, in my village we have a very easy saying: when an old man dies, the village library burns down, because he dies with 70, 80 years of experience that you will never be able to replace again. God bless you. Take care of yourself and catch you soon.